Hey guys, so today we have Vinay, co-founder of BeatRoute with us. So he has been kind enough to share certain insights about building sustainable businesses, building SaaS business from India for global audience. So we will discuss about team building, identifying startup opportunity, how to grow business sustainably, and role of funding for certain startup today. So thank you Vinay for your time.
My pleasure.
So it would be great if you can just give a short brief about you. How did you come up to BeatRoute? Where did idea of BeatRoute and how is it going?
Look, I am a techie by heart. Um, I've been doing sort of tech businesses for a while now. This is my third venture as an entrepreneur. Before these two SAP consulting firms that I did, it was my last one where we were working with a lot of consumer goods companies, and I got sort of deep sort of insight into how they work within their operations as well as outside of their operations when they try and take their product to thousands of people who consume it at the end of the day, right? I thought that they're doing pretty well in terms of their intra-company operations. Softwares like ERP were sort of well in place and had easy choices to make. But when it came to sales, I thought they were pretty archaic like a few years ago, like I'm talking 8 years ago approximately, from where we sit today in 2023. So huge scope of how technology can completely change the way they take their product to consumers through their route to market, through their GTM. And that's where sort of idea of BeatRoute occurred to me, that technology can definitely change that game.
So one of the key takeaways that I've seen in especially product entrepreneurs is that they specifically spend some time in service industry, basically catering to specific client needs, exposing them to area, exposing them to specific problem statement, but solving it not in a very productized way, but just exposing themselves to the opportunity part of it and then coming to productizing it. So what do you think this approach of shift from service to product, how does it pan out?
So I'm not sure whether that's a necessary thing to have as a background, but I'll tell you how it worked for me, right? The way it worked for me is because I was doing services and solutions for customers in consumer goods industry, and that would mean understanding their problems deeply, what they value as customers, right?
Right.
Very deeply, things like they don't want just the software that works for them today. They would want it to scale as well as they scale. Just one example, right? I wouldn't have had that insight unless I was doing SAP consulting services or SAP solution templates for some of these companies in consumer goods industry. So a deep insight of what customers want at the end of the day comes from that experience of having delivered solutions to them. Maybe not in a productized way, but then you apply your mind to it and then say that, hey, if I have to do it all over again and again, then why can't I just do a productization of this, right? So that's the good part of it, right? If it happened to you, that's great. Um, but as a person, I experienced that getting out of services to do a product, that's a completely different challenge, because you were in this loop of trying to service customers, and if you thought that it would magically sort of spin out a product from there, it never happens, right? Because you are actually building for customers requirement. Building for customers requirement is completely different from having a broader perspective and thinking through a solution or a product that could service a large number of customers. So you have to find your sort of tangential escape from that circle of doing services for customers. For me, it was just one day I switched it off and I got into product.
Nice. So, like two key insights which I get from what you are saying, that if I am wishing to be a SaaS entrepreneur in certain area, I find certain area exciting. I find that there are some problems which can be solved, but I'm not able to zero down myself on that this is the biggest problem that can be solved through product. So one approach is that I might start solving certain problems in a service oriented way, but looking at the problems I'm encountering from a more wider perspective, so that transition from service to product, it's something that can be done. It's not an overnight thing. It's a process framework that you build in your mind while solving customer specific problems, so that it caters to more wider problems moving forward.
So I think it helps big time in terms of getting a really deep understanding of the customer's problems, right? But that's where it has to stop. It's like living in real world to know how life is. And then if you had to spread Buddhism, you had to leave one day your family behind. Just say bye to it, right? So a services guy has to say bye to that circle of serving customer need because customer has asked you to do it, and then take a broader perspective and then think of thousands of customers who can be serviced by a set of that problem statement.
Right. That sets a very clear perspective from service versus product business. Now, coming to my next question, just briefly answer, how do you see Indian SaaS opportunity? Like, you have been in the space for past 6-7 years, transitioning from service to product business, selling SaaS product in India, outside India. How do you see Indian SaaS as an opportunity? And then we will come to other parts of it in my later questions.
So SaaS as an opportunity globally, I see that we are really in a nascent stage. I fundamentally believe that there is no process which is unique. The same process is being used by several companies at the same time. They all require those problems to be solved. And if somebody thinks appropriately, like I said, in a way that could address a set of problem statements, you could build a software. So I fundamentally believe that 80% of software should be SaaS, which is not the case today. So it's a huge journey. It's a huge upside that entrepreneurs, SaaS builders have that they can chase, right? India specifically obviously gives a huge advantage because you are building here, which is sort of a home for so many tech people, and it's just easier to build here, right? Depending on what problem you are solving, you can take it to Indian customers, you can take it to customers in Asia Pacific, or you can take it to customers in America or Latin America. Doesn't matter. Market can be anywhere, but building here is really super exciting.
Nice. So from now on, whenever I see any processes, thinking that there are, like, theme of the processes is unique, at least the theme wise. Execution wise, there are multiple variants which we see in terms of sales execution, distribution execution, but really finding the core of it, really finding the theme of it, solving from India, wherein in terms of businesses of all size, users of all segments, it's pretty diverse, and tech talent which is available. So I think we are both aligned on the fact that Indian SaaS is a big opportunity, and in terms of solving Indian and global use cases.
Absolutely. I loved your concept of theme, right? Theme is what you have to catch on to. Your segment may be whatever, small, big customers, but a theme of problem statements is this fear that can become a SaaS. That's what you have to identify.
Right.
What is your set of themes?
From what I know, BeatRoute has been till now mostly bootstrapped with only single round of funding at the start. So, how do you see SaaS, which are mostly B2B businesses, SaaS B2B versus other kind of startups which are B2C startups? So, does funding have a different role to play in both the scenarios in terms of fueling growth for SaaS versus fueling growth for startups reaching more wider audience in terms of people, B2C brands, B2C businesses, D2C brands, and other service tech startups which are coming in India?
Yeah, so look, if you're building a SMB SaaS or enterprise SaaS, both are completely different, right? SMB SaaS is more like you are looking at a narrow product um, that could be scaled really fast, velocity sales applied on a large number of customers. You might have a funding need there, which is completely different from enterprise SaaS funding needs. If you're trying to build software for enterprise, most customers don't require to try it to buy it. They're actually serious buyers, a set of people trying to evaluate your software, and they're willing to pay for it. They're willing to even pay for doing a trial with you because they want you to really sincerely do it with not just the software, but appropriate sort of human infrastructure along with it to actually make it happen in their environment.
Like this is something against what some of my friends operating in the space, what they think, that like dealing with big enterprises, you are a small startup. So doesn't that create pressure that okay, take us on trial for 4 months, set up a free pilot for us, give an exposure, because just because I'm so big and you are a small company. So does that, how do you deal with those challenges in terms of customers expectations and over expecting from you during pilot period itself?
I think it's a myth that that providers have nurtured in their mind that that doing a trial is something that large customers expect. They don't actually expect you to be doing anything free. They want everything in the framework of purchase process. A set of people actually are allocated from their side, so they are already incurring cost. What you are doing is just an incremental cost. So if you ask for a cost to run that pilot or run that initial phase of the project, and you are also asking for the cost for people who are going to do that, people pay. There's no hesitation that they have in mind. Some customers may ask you that do it for free, might as well be better, but actually that's not healthy for both parties, the provider as well as the buyer. And large customers don't need it. It's more a myth that providers have.
Nice.
nurtured.
It's good to hear from an ecosystem growth perspective. So having understood the mindset of Indian enterprise buyers and SMB, in which velocity sales is important, free trial for certain days, and then converting, basically product-led growth in case of if you are selling to SMB, and if you are selling to enterprise, then your product readiness at the start, and then you go into the paid thing from the very start. Now, how is selling in India different from selling outside? Like most SaaS companies either go to US for their next market or operate in Southeast Asian markets from India. So how do you see India versus outside India sales for an early startup looking to scale their GTM?
Look, I think the buyer's behavior, particularly in the enterprise segment, is same across the world. A lot of times these people are moving countries. A guy who worked earlier in Asia Pacific headquarter might be working in some Western country for the same company or for a similar company. So their processes and their mindset of buying is quite similar in enterprise segment. Just the big difference that if you have to run a GTM in US, for example, as a territory, the enterprise sales is a very expensive process. Building a team that runs enterprise sales, GTM, is going to be very expensive in US compared to a place which is close to your home country. So GTM might change just for that reason, that you would rather partner with people who have established GTM in those countries and expect them to sell and in the process win themselves than actually doing it yourself.
So role of partners become important at the start so that you don't have to get into setting up local entities and getting that local context right from day zero. How does it evolve? Let's say you start with partners. So are you implying that you don't go yourself at the start, or this needs to be the approach even when you move sometime down your GTM?
So we have at least good success in a couple of countries, and in our limited experience, having sort of presence there is important, but you can make it lean. Having presence there is important because you want to show commitment to your own partner, right? That you are really sincere and serious about the territory. And having a partner is important because he's a local face. There is a GTM language, which may not necessarily be your native language, or there is an end user language as well that you have to deal with. All that is handled by the partner, right? And on top of that, contractual obligations that partner in local country delivers really well. So partner helps in that way. Your presence, although in a leaner way, would keep it capital efficient as well as will do the job.
So a combination of your efforts, but in a very lean way, and partners' efforts together, I think it is making sense for you in the countries that you have been able to crack.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So we have covered SaaS landscape, selling in India, selling outside, your journey specifically, how it started with SaaS, how people looking to start in the space should look at problems both from a service and product perspective. Let's move down to the team setup. So in terms of team, you have previously commented that BeatRoute is one of the companies that is an advocate of remote work, and you have been open in the fact that you might be proven wrong, and you won't hesitate in terms of committing if it does not work out, that in terms of being proven wrong. What do you think is the biggest challenge you have felt? What is the biggest challenge, and what has been the biggest enabler in terms of making remote work for you?
So true that I've been a big believer of outcome-oriented culture, right? It's very, very innate, very, very fundamental to me as a person to not sort of supervise, not be a taskmaster, but more, bring clarity to people, and they would get the outcome, right? And if you built a right team, I do believe that they actually focus on the outcome. So I've been at core a believer of remote work. I admired companies like Zapier, even from pre-COVID era, looking at their fully remote culture. We got the opportunity through this difficult time that everybody faced. But your question about what has enabled us,
like what has been the biggest enabler and what has been the biggest challenge?
Right. The biggest enabler has been tools that sort of make you feel that you are actually coming in office, mimicking or mirroring your physical office environment on a virtual sort of a world. So it's not like you are waiting for a Google Meet or Zoom call to be set up to be able to talk to somebody, but our tool allows us to simply just walk in any room. I think that as a single tool has been a good enabler for us. Just having the culture of outcome orientation has helped us. I think we have a journey still to cover. In terms of challenges, I think it's being behind the dark screen is not so friendly to sort of humans just as such. Is a feeling that I have sort of had, which is on the downside of this kind of work, right? And we have our own ways of compensating for that, right, and offsetting that. But long periods of connecting with your co-workers where you are just behind a screen is something that has to be tackled.
Yeah, true
Yeah.
that. But the human connection is one of the main thing which sometimes goes missing in such setups. So, especially in case of remote work and Indian setting, I'm just taking my example. So, basically, people are conditioned to just separate their office space by virtue of going to an actual office. That this is where I separate my personal life from my work, and when I come back, I'm again in my personal zone. So, I think one of the challenges from an Indian household perspective is infra challenge, that how do people solve for their infra challenge, and in terms of giving them the best shot at making it successful. So I think from what you outlined, that one is outcome based people operations, then just looking after infra needs of people, and if you're able to invest as a company, then invest into that. And the third thing is basically hiring a right set of people who can be more responsible in adapting them to different needs, because you won't have somebody sitting over your head always, that you need to work.
Yes, I think you have to recognize who you are as a company, as a team, what are the value system that do you want the team to be built around, right? And uh, you choosing a way of working in spite of its pros and cons, because you believe that net it will work for you. And if you got people that are not aligned with that, then obviously it won't work out, right? So in this kind of setup, you do need people who are more outcome oriented again, who don't need to be supervised, who are sort of understand the process of taking ownership, delegating rightly, or calling out when they need help, um, checkpointing on their own, right? You have to build all those little things in your culture, and use it as a norm, as a standard, right? So then it doesn't matter that somebody is sitting beside you or somebody is keeping an eye on you while you are working on your task. All that doesn't matter, really, right? So I agree with you. Little bit of that kind of culture orientation, and no doubt the challenge of infrastructure at home, and the sort of emotional expectations that exist in a Indian household, particularly where you were able to separate to some extent, but have you conditioned, have you worked with your family, and have you sort of set right expectations that they see that boundary as well, right? That when you're working, you're
So we can fairly say that if you are a company looking to transition to remote work, then just assessing the level of infra availability by the kind of talent, by the kind of people that you have. So one major factor can be this: that are my people equipped in terms of giving them the best chance at succeeding in terms of work. And then what can be other things for a company looking to transition? One point you highlighted was related to tech. There are tools available right now.
tools, tech, cultural fitment, to be working in this kind of environment, or and enjoying it, right? Um, um, Last but not the least, definitely finding ways to offset disconnection, natural disconnection that happens because you're not meeting your colleagues, not meeting people that you are collaborating with on day-to-day basis. It does have an impact, and you have to offset that with other ways of getting together.
Right. And I think when people changed, like during COVID times, when it changed from an office setting to a home setting, the most offsetting thing, or the thing which people dislike the most, that it broke the boundary between my work and office. Now I'm working at 9 p.m. Now I'm working at 10 p.m. because I'm not giving myself a deadline maybe I'm just ineffective at work. I think BeatRoute has done pretty well in terms of keeping work well defined into work timings. I was coming across one founder. He was saying that how do you see whether you have hit your product market fit or not? If your people are able to work from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Oh,
and
God.
still you're able to remain profitable, I think that is also a good metric to see whether you have hit the right PMF or not.
I won't relate it that way, uh, but but just general work window is good. I think you want to be efficient in that. When you're working remote, there is an advantage of working together. You're working remote, but you're working together because you've chosen one single window and you're available, although in a virtual environment, all together. I can knock your door and then get in the room that you were sitting in. You can come in and meet me, um, because I might have things to do with you, right? So maintaining a common work window is important, and not sort of overshooting that in a completely freewheeling way is important, right? People have some semblance of when their personal time begins, um, and when their work time begins, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
also important to maintain a contract with your people at home, right? They would respect you and your sort of work timings only when you know that you only when they know that you're going to be available after this time to them.
So that sort of camaraderie in terms of your mutual availability,
Yes.
and then being able to give time to
Right.
your
Right.
people with whom you're living.
Right.
Yeah, I think it makes sense that restricting work windows, especially in case of distributed teams.
Yeah.
So, right, we discussed about remote work. Now, let's move to another challenge which comes is basically people hiring. Like in terms of, like, as a founder, if you have a good core team surrounding you, taking care of multiple functions. So I won't go into teams at wider scale. I will just restrict my question to when you are building your core team. So what are the core things? What are important parameters that you look at in terms of hiring the people basically who are closely working with you, that inner circle of people?
Over the period, we found certain core values that sort of reflect our way of working and the kind of conduct that we want to demonstrate, right? So I look for fitment around that. Obviously, that goes beyond the skills that I'm looking at, right? Skills to a certain level are important, right? Because you're fundamentally looking for somebody in some area. So beyond that skill, it's the fitment to our core values, like being ambitious, being somebody who enjoys teamwork, right? Who can help others, and thrives in an environment where other people are willing to support him, is the kind of trait that we are looking at, right?
So from what I understand is basically uh, skills, just merely looking at skills is basically the transactional part of it, but you look for certain attributes because these people are basically enabling their teams. So just some element to see whether these people are enablers at a wider team level. Is that the correct understanding?
You got it right. You basically somebody. So I see leadership roles less as doing all by yourself and being an expert in your own sort of skills. Um, Good sort of exposure to areas and problems that you are going to tackle is important. But fundamentally, you have to be a problem solver, and no problem can be solved by yourself. So you have to be a builder. You have to be a team builder who builds a team around yourself, who are willing to sort of go above and beyond and do things. So that usually is dear to me. That's how I work with teams. I'm very functional with teams, very dysfunctional by myself alone, and that's what I feel my function leaders would also be most effective.
Yeah, right. I think just adhering to your core values which you set up, it's especially difficult in early age companies. Like large companies have a specific dedicated big HR functions looking after value system of the companies. But I think some some kind of some kind of behavior around core values, especially in group settings, teamwork settings, becomes extremely important. So as an early stage organization, if you just give enough importance to it, I think it adds to what you are saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like you are a product person, uh, in BeatRoute by heart, you are a product person. So for somebody who is starting to build a product solving for a wider problem, like it becomes very challenging at the start, that on what level of product readiness do I take my product to what kind of organization. Like SaaS is a big journey, right, in
Yeah.
which you keep building. So prioritizing certain features, prioritizing certain launches, I think that is where the main game is. And especially when you are not investing in terms of buying client, you are you are selling what you have at that point in time.
Yeah.
So how do you bring it out that we need to work upon this? And this is my this more from your early days, in terms of that, this minimum product I can take. So what is that journey for our viewers?
Yeah, that's a $1 million question. You have a whole journey of product that you can see in front of you, but picking up things that you want to do today, so you acquire customers and you don't leave them unhappy, and then you are also trying to chase the rest of the market, right? I thought, and I would have made my own mistakes to get to that learning, right? But I thought most people sort of get swayed by the fact that if I don't acquire that set of customer, competition will, and in that attempt they build wider, not deeper. I thought the trick is to actually pick a segment, because at any point of time a startup needs to only get a few customers in next few months. If you do that every quarter or every 6 months, then you're well on your way from your early customers to a few $100,000 of revenue to actually $1 million revenue, and so on and so forth, right? Each time you have to know which segment to go after next to get my next set of customers, and only those many customers is what you require, right? Just be very super sharp focused on that, build everything for that segment, right? And you look back years after, and then you'll see that you built a sort of a very evolved product that caters to this segment, that segment, and another segment. But if you try to keep everything in mind upfront, all those customers upfront, then the life is going to be hard, right? You'll build a lot of things with not much sort of depth for anybody.
So picking up small customer segment and then going in depth about solving for that small customer segment, is that
True, while having a foundation that doesn't impede you, right? The challenge of our target segment has been that a lot of narrow products have been made which work for an industry vertical. They don't go across, because I think people who built them didn't identify what's common across these verticals, right? So uh, that's another reason why the problem compounds, right? That you have to keep a long-term vision, that I cannot create a foundation of a house that cannot sustain another extension to it in future, because I'm trying to look at another vertical. So you have to have a very wider foundation, but you are addressing one need at a time, right? You first build a 2-room house that sort of caters to my need that I can define right now, right? My immediate need, right? And then you keep extending, right?
right? So solving for one targeted problem to start with, keeping your eye on product architecture or the foundation of the product itself, that what is my wider segment that I might get into.
Right.
So I need to take care that I won't fall into scalability issues as I move down in terms of the problems that I'm solving.
Absolutely.
And then growing with your initial customers, and then analyze basically the gap between next set of problems and the one that you are that you are seeing right now. I think
Architecture long term, features short term, features for the segment that you're going to try and acquire customers in, but architecture for the long term.
So architecture basically sets you up for the long rewarding journey in terms of SaaS.
Yeah.
Most founders have a vision in terms of what company needs to do, how much market share we will increase, what revenues will go to. My alternate question would be, as a founder, what's your vision in terms of people who are working with you? Like, I believe that businesses do have a vision, but having a vision for the people who are working for a certain mission. So what is your vision for them?
I guess it has to be a rewarding journey for those people as well, right? I see, like I told you earlier, that I'm so dysfunctional by myself, right? I am most functional with working with the team, and if you achieve something with the team, you have to reach the end point along with them, and really truly be able to sort of share the outcome with them, right? Something that remains very top of mind for me and very close to me, that seeing other people benefit from the results of what we do, and ensuring that and guarding that in every which way is a thought that I keep in mind, right?
In terms of, I understood in terms of professional, this thing that making it rewarding for the person who is spending significant amount of hours every day. So making that journey significant from an experience and professional standpoint perspective. Do you have any personal goals for them, like in terms of personal life, that if somebody is working here, I see a lot of founders now talking about the personal and professional part of it, in which fitness becomes one of the important things. So any thoughts on that line?
To be honest, maybe an unfinished agenda for us. Remote work has also meant that the movement that you get, right, on day-to-day basis is much less. And me personally, or a lot of my teammates, we are trying to build this as a culture, as a goal, really, that how can we keep ourselves healthy, and we're trying to introduce different programs where we can enjoy maybe working together, playing together, or some kind of culture of working out and taking care of ourselves, as a result, as an offset to the downside of working from home.
Yeah, so that gives a clear perspective in terms of your view on setting up teams, SaaS in India, SaaS, GTM in India, outside India. We touched topics right from the most discussed topic in these days, remote work. How do you see remote work panning out for BeatRoute as an organization? I liked speaking with you, and
Same here.
wishing us all the best.
Thank you so much, Kaushal. Same here. I really enjoyed it too. SaaS is very exciting. Remote work is phenomenal if you practice it well. I hope your audience would get some